Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin and Prez. In this episode 310, I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Prez, that is at _Presidente on Twitter. Prez, how are you doing on this Thursday evening?
Draft is done, which means my work is done. I'm relaxed. I'm zen. Whatever happens, happens.
Are you Zen?
No, that's not true at all. I'm not zen. I have very strong preferences that I have many hills I would die on. What that means is I tweet about those hills less.
Yeah. You don't have to worry about you don't have to die in like a shot mechanics hill right now.
I mean, there's always that time always exists. That's beyond time and space.
We're going to talk about a lot of things, a lot of interesting news. Not even necessarily news, but morsels, rumors coming out of
slop.
The Knicks.
Some might say.
Slop coming out of the Knicks verse. But before we get started with all that, I have to make a few announcements. The first being that the Strickland has an Instagram. Check that out. That is at the Strict Online on Instagram. We're posting all kinds of new content on there. The Strickland also has a YouTube channel where you may be watching this podcast. If you are watching it on there and you haven't done so already, please hit like and then subscribe to the channel. That would be a huge help to us. The Strickland also has merchandise. Check it out on our website. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, water bottles, even coffee mugs. It's all there. So check that out. And then finally, the Strickland has a Patreon, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland, this podcast that I host every Friday with Prez. You also get access to the Strickland Mailbag, hosted by Andrew Steele, a.k.a. Doug, a.k.a. the Doug Bag, alongside Dallas Amico. That comes out every other week. You also get access to the Strickland Discord, where the conversation never stops. There are further tiers. There's a $9 tier that gets you access to Strickland Roll, my solo pod, where I rant and rave about the Knicks even more. You also get access to wonderful premium articles by Matthew Miranda, one of the best in the business. There are further tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, and $100 tier. Those come with a variety of additional benefits like listening in on pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially co-hosting a podcast alongside yours truly one day, whether you choose to subscribe or not. None of this would be possible without you. And finally, this podcast would not be possible without BetOnline, which is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and matchup reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use promo code BLEAV, BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. So yeah, we can we can start with. I mean, shit, we just got a fucking stupid Woj bomb right now. If you want to start with that,
Yeah, I just pulled that up.
Yeah, what? Sacramento Kings forward Harrison Barnes, a key part of the franchise's rise into Western Conference contention, has agreed on a new 3-year, $54 million contract extension. His agent, Jeff Schwartz of @XL Basketball, tells ESPN, gotta say, just
18 a year for 3 years.
Harrison Barnes is a fucking master. He's got to be above $200 million now for his career, which is
he's in the Hall of Fame of bag getters, along with our Washington duo, John and Bradley.
Yeah, I mean, well, Brad is in another fucking.
He's like the LeBron James of whatever the opposite of fumbling the bag is, just swindling the bag, perhaps.
Yeah, he got a no trade clause. Bradley Beal is the master.
The no trade clause on that contract was like Kobe scoring like 81. That's what that was. That's just like magnificent.
I gotta say, I want to throw this out there. I mean, I know this isn't how you wanted to start, but we're gonna start with this because
that's fine.
It literally happened. No joke. Like as I finished my capitalist read, my ode to capitalism that I do at the start of every pod. No, like, all right. Also, like the Knicks last year. Okay, they trade. I understand the 11th pick is not the 24th pick. I understand. The Knicks actually got. One, they had a clear. They knew who they were going to sign, right? They knew that it was for Brunson. I'm sure they had an idea for Isaiah Hartenstein too, CAA. Like they knew who they were clearing their cap space for. They actually got assets back in the trade. However you feel about those assets, I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying they did get assets back in the trade, And they cleared a hell of a lot more space. Granted, they had to attach 6 second-round picks to it too, but they cleared a lot more space. They cleared, what is it? I think something like $26 million or something. Over, it's just a lot more space. I don't really like the Barnes contract. Doesn't really bother me that much. I don't really think I don't know if he's actually that good anymore, so I'm not sure I love it. But like, it's whatever.
People gonna flip out because 54 sounds like a lot, but 18 really isn't a lot. All things considered, like that's less than Fournier made, and Fournier people think it's not. With Fournier, it's not as much either. Like you're getting a guy who, like, yeah, he's not great, but he's like fine, and there's a continuity and locker room benefit as well. And like we know they were considering Kuzma, and apparently the Rockets are gonna go crazy and throw a bag at him, probably well above 18 million. So I'm pretty sure that was gonna be the Kings' target, but they probably didn't want to go quite as high as the Rockets are about to go. I'm sure they kicked the tires on Dre, but in my opinion, Dre and Sack was never a good fit either for Sack or for Dre. He's probably just going to return to Golden State unless Portland does something wild. So after those guys, I mean, like Sacramento's a team that's trying to win now, right? Like they could go for an upside guy, like say Obi Toppin, but like, are there other? I mean, like quasi fours there. Like that's why I agree with you. I think it's just
Kuzma was on the board, so they clearly, to me, they either didn't want him, or they didn't want to hit the number he wanted, or he didn't want them. There's only those three options, and it doesn't really matter to me who or what they end up with. The fact is, like, they didn't. I find it very difficult to believe that they just move off the 24th pick in a draft that you believe is, and not just you, a lot of people believe had a lot of very good depth pieces still available at the pick they gave up, 24th. Just to move off Richaun Holmes' contract, which, like, I get is $12 million of basically dead cap space in her sheet, but it just feels like very much like let's just use this pick to get off this bad contract without a clear idea of who or what you were targeting, or even if you could get the player or players that you specifically wanted to target. Now, maybe they wanted to bring back Harrison Barnes on.
No, Kuz was definitely. I mean, there's still Grant Williams. However you feel about that, and after that, yeah, it's like you're talking role player dudes. Keita Bates' job. You could trade for Kenyon Martin Jr. PJ's not going anywhere. Probably Yang from Philly. That's really Uncle Jeff, like slim pickings.
Yeah, to me, it's bonkers. I don't really understand it.
I think it's what you said. They probably were banking on a very limited market for Kyle Kuzma with Barnes as their fallback. That was probably their plan. And I think the Rockets caught them off guard. I think the Rockets, for people who didn't know, there's rumors not only that the Rockets are going to pay Kyle Kuzma a big number, but they're also going to go 2 years, 80 or 82 million for Fred VanVleet. I think they caught the Raptors off guard with that as well. Even though they hired Udoka, and we've been joking but not joking about how he didn't, he wasn't hired to bring a childcare, and everybody and their mama knew that this team needed vets. I think a lot of teams around the league probably thought they would do the rebuilding thing of like vets who still won't interfere with, touches for their young players, Whitmore, Amen, Jalen, Jabari, my son Tari, KBJ is going to be out of there probably, so not him, but even those guys, like, and they said, nope, fuck all that shit. We're getting not just vets, but players who can hoop, who are in their primes. And, however you feel about that, I think it is something a lot of teams, you don't see that a lot in the NBA, right? Like rebuilding teams don't go 0 to 60 like that for the most part. They they get a couple vets, and then they have seasons to season their kids, and then eventually you add like high cost talent, prime talent once your kids are coming like approaching their prime. And I think this is just the Kings kind of made a bet that they thought had less risk than it probably actually did, and as a result, like, it's not, like you said, it's not the end of the world. Harrison Barnes is fine. Keegan's going to be better than last year, right? Like, and he can play the 4. But I promise you, this was not their plan A.
Yeah, just
and giving up the pick, like you said.
It just feels like, you had your full bird rights on him. They had what they cleared. I think that cleared up to 34 million in space. So that got them up to 34 million in space. You could have just kept him, and we'd have had the full mid-level available to you. I think Barnes, they could have just re-signed him and had the full mid-level available to them, even with Richaun Holmes and the 24th pick, whoever they picked on the roster. I guess the other thing, I'm assuming they're going to do this, is they're going to renegotiate and extend Sabonis. So maybe that's the reason for clearing the space. It just feels, again, like
they were going to do 2 things at least, because I don't care how, like, even the Rockets are not going to go 34 or 33 for Kuz. 30 is like the max they'll go. And even I don't know about that. So, like, yeah, I think they were trying to create space to do a few things. And I mean, they certainly have the space now to do some things, but it's not. It's weird. It's like you said. It's one thing. It's one thing to miss your first target and end up taking your second target, right? That's not uncommon. But when you give up a solid pick to prepare to do that, then that hurts a little bit. And I know if like the Knicks did something like that, I'd be pretty pissed. That being said, they do have amount of a decent, not as much as the Knicks, but they have a decent amount of like young players who need minutes. But it's in terms of like picking a player and them being blocked from getting minutes, I don't know if that's the case for them, right? Because they still don't have great like front court. Like, who's their bench forwards?
They don't have one. That was the entire point of the space, right? It was like, there's all these 4s in the market.
They have guards, and that's it.
Yeah. I mean, look, maybe they can still do something. Like, they have about what they should have about 16.5 million in space, depending on what this contract starts at. Like, they still have some numbers to do something. Like, maybe they can trade Obi Toppin, get him in, and like, there's options for them. I'm not saying that they have to trade for Obi, but they have space. Maybe they can do something with it. But yeah, you gotta think, like, at least on the surface right now in real time, this doesn't feel like a great start for them. All right. Anyway, enough about
this wouldn't be an off-season episode of Pod Strickland if we didn't start out prioritizing discussion of the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah. Why? Let's talk a little bit about the Sacramento Kings here. No, the real news that we wanted to get to is that the Cleveland Cavaliers did not extend Dylan Windler a qualifying offer. Huge news.
Huge news for James Bew.
I like Dylan Windler in that draft. No, we're going to talk. Yeah,
he still is solid.
He just got to fucking stay healthy, this guy.
Right.
All right. Anyway, enough about actual bullshit that I'm sure 10 people already turned off this podcast. All right. No, we wanted to talk about the Knicks. A few things. Let's talk with, like you said, you wanted to start with kind of the stream of news that we got kind of dumped on us all of a sudden. But the most, I mean, look, it started with Woj and Shams almost simultaneously reporting that James Harden was opting into his contract.
Well, it started with Josh Hart.
Was that the first one? I thought the first one was just that James Harden had opted in, and then we got the Josh Hart news.
Oh, maybe.
Because the first tweet was just like, and it's funny because I nearly stopped reading it.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Because the ESPN was like, oh, they're running it back.
Yeah, it was like, oh, he's opting in, and I was like about to stop reading it because I'm like, oh, I guess, damn, the market sucked for him. I guess they're running it back another year. And I was like, and they're working together to get a trade. I was like, wait, what are we doing? So yeah, we got the news that Harden's going to be on the move. And right after that, he followed up with the Knicks would be interested the Knicks and the Clippers. I mean, the Clippers were initially reported, then he dropped the Knicks in there. And right after that, we got the news that Josh Hart had opted into his player option for $12.9 million. We all expect, and I would be like, I don't know if I could be more shocked about anything than if Josh Hart was not extended in August when he can be extended at that point. But anyway, he opted in, and it was just like all this shit is going on. Then you have the reporting. It's like, I don't know. I'll let Prez. You can walk us through this. What were your feelings, your emotions? How was your mental state of being? Do you need to talk to your therapist?
Before the tweet about the Knicks being involved, I was just like puzzling, and we'll talk about this, but like Philly's in a weird spot, right? And they just have like, it's weird because strategy wise, you assume pivoting from Doc to Nurse means something, just because you don't hire Nurse for the status quo, and you don't hire Nurse for the expected veteran management of a competitive playoff team. You hire Nurse because he's about to change some shit up. And then on top of that, you have Embiid, who's an MVP, but he's also 30, and he doesn't have how many years he has left in his deal?
Harden, or sorry, who is this?
Joel Embiid.
Embiid has 2.
Yeah, 2, which is not a lot. So you kind of have him. You're never gonna get proper value for him if you trade him right now. You're certainly not gonna get what people's first reaction is when you think of, an MVP is traded, right? You expect the sun and the moon and the stars, because he gets hurt and he's 30 and he's on the wrong side of 30 now, and he hasn't gotten his team far in the playoffs ever. So, and then they have Daryl Morey, who's like, this is the guy who's willing to play games of chicken with his own free agents and his own players and all types of shit. So I don't know if he's unpredictable, but his playbook is a little bigger than other front offices' playbooks in terms of just shit he's willing to do. Although we do know some of the things he likes. So I say all that to say, like, I don't really know what the fuck the 76ers are doing. And Harden deciding I'm out is not entirely surprised. We all thought he was going to go to Houston, right? And now that, like, he's going to go to LA, the first thought was like, okay, they can't be punting on an Embiid season, so maybe Paul George is going back. And then you think about it from the Clippers perspective, and it's like, that's exchanging stars is not like crazy, but it's also kind of weird because, like, I know Shwin has been saying they should hit the reset button, and they probably should, right? They can be competitive and sell tickets and get into the playoffs and do all of that shit, but they're not fucking with the Suns or the Nuggets.
I think they could beat the Suns, actually. I mean, if they were, this is the thing. If they're healthy, they could beat the Suns.
That's fair.
The Suns are whack. The Suns
Kawhi
apparently,
is a force.
Yeah. I mean, he owns Durant. Like they could beat the Suns, but like this is the thing. They've gotten their asses kicked by Jokic for a couple of years now. And Jokic is ascending. Like, he's in his prime right now.
He's literally getting better.
Yeah, he's literally the best player in the world right now.
And getting better.
It's Jamal Murray is probably going to get better because
he's getting better.
Yeah,
coming back from this is the first time he's looked. I mean, they've talked about it a lot, right? This is the first time he was really comfortable with his body since the injury.
Yeah, I'm gonna need like people to pump the brakes a little bit on Jamal Murray is like,
Did you know he did push-ups in the Canadian Tongass wilderness growing up? I'm like, that's child abuse, right? People that's a gritty story. Also, child abuse.
Yeah.
Like,
also, like, people like comparing him to guys like I don't even get look, I don't even love Trae Young, but I don't know how you compare those guys because like Jamal Murray's never had to do what Trae Young's had to do.
His playoff numbers are as good as anybody's, but you can't remove it from the context of playing off of the best player. That's the thing. Like, I subscribe to the theory that because of his injuries and other weirdness, true Jamal Murray might be closer to playoff Jamal Murray than regular season Jamal Murray, but we've still never seen any Jamal Murray without Jokic, and that's fine. But like a lot of these other guys, like you said with Trey or Brunson, for example, like these guys are carrying the weight. They don't have an MV fucking P. Like that's not nothing. That's a massive fucking deal. Like, and it's weird to me because people acknowledge Jokic like, oh, multiple time MVP, now I'm champion or whatever. But like, if this was LeBron, if he was playing with LeBron James, people would understand it. It's
Well,
like
he wouldn't be getting any credit. That's
Who?
what would happen. Murray.
Oh yeah. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like we've seen it with Kyrie. Like I think people acknowledge like the Cleveland chip with Kyrie, for example. Like of course Kyrie played a hugely important role, but like this is fucking LeBron James' team, and I don't think nobody's saying like this is Jamal Murray's team, but like you're putting him on the level. Like it's similar to Kyrie in the sense that like Kyrie's not gonna carry a team like that. But we've at least seen Kyrie put up numbers on teams as the number one threat and stuff like that. So I don't know. I do agree.
It's just weird.
It's a little weird.
And I like Murray. The conversations he's been put in now, I'm like, let's slow down a little bit. It's kind of like when, I mean, I hate doing this because I fucking really despise the player. I really despise James Harden, but like, it's kind of like when people were trying to put Clay above James Harden, and that happened. Like, and it was like,
right.
like, let's relax. Like I like Clay more than Harden too, but they're not even doing the same things. Like
they have different jobs.
Yeah, like very, very different jobs. But to go back to what you're talking about, like, yeah, look, I just don't. The Clippers thing is so weird to me because it's like when you make a bad investment, at some point you just have to cut off the investment and try to get back what you can and move from there. And it just feels like they're not interested in doing that because the reporting that came out after from Windhorst and others is like they're not trying to move Paul George and get James Harden in. They're trying to move Harden in and make this big three. And it's like I don't get it. Like I'm sorry. Like I understand the star power. And I understand they're moving to a new stadium and James.
That's
Harden
what it is. It's an investment, but not in the basketball sense. It's a low odds bet on the court, but for just revenue for the new stadium, like you're gonna make the playoffs, you're gonna sell out every fucking game.
You're going for broke. I mean, it's not about basketball. It's just about making sure that you get as many people to come to that stadium as you can. And maybe as a fan and somebody just thinking about it in the lens of basketball, it's tough to wrap my head around that. But like
basketball wise, it's just a dice roll. It's like a less insane version of what happened in Brooklyn. Like we can say what we want about like that Brooklyn trio, but like they were fucking hooping when they all played, which was only like 15 games or whatever. 16 games, right? But like, we know they were there. Yes, they were there to like win, but not really, right? Like they were just there to kind of hoop together. And I'm not saying that the three LA guys, which is what they are they're not like. I think they're all interested in winning very much, but like. From a front office perspective, it's like, okay, if we can guarantee wild gate receipts for our new stadium and have a puncher's chance, and like we can figure out what we do, how we pivot after, then like we'll fucking roll with that because we'll be rolling in dough from the new stadium and making some noise because you know how this shit is in places like New York and LA. Like you open a new stadium. Like, you remember how fucking hard the Nets tried to, like, really just separate themselves when they moved to Brooklyn? They tried to, like, make it a big fucking deal and all this shit.
Well, that was the big thing about the Melo trade, right? It's like they wanted Melo to kind of be the headline guy. And then when, obviously, the Knicks got Melo, then they shifted and they got Darren Williams. But they wanted a guy. That was the big thing. They wanted and needed, and they felt obligated to have a guy. And I
think it's hugely important to them to open a new stadium with not running it back if possible, because like they're competing with LeBron James in terms of headlines and tickets. Like we can say what we want about that Lakers team actual playoff chances, but like Clippers. you're not going to you're sharing the stage with a very bright light there. So the only way to really compete is to do some splashy shit, and then maybe it bites you on the back end, right? Which is that's the question, right? Is like Harden he's opting in, so you got to figure out what the fuck to do after you give up shit. Maybe they don't have to give up picks. I don't know. Like that's the other piece here. Like I do wonder. Like yes, they should rebuild, but if the cost for Harden is anywhere near as cheap as the cost for a lot of these other recent trades, where it's just like some bullshit pick and players who are like whatever, then I kind of get it, unless you plan on for sure extending and aging James Harden, in which case then it becomes a little dicey. But like for a 1 year puncher's gamble while you open a new stadium, like shit, if it's just like a protected first and Nick Batum and some bullshit, like I would do that shit 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, I mean,
would you even want to sell these guys now as opposed to like later with the way these deals are going, right? Like
here's my thing. If you are going to get Harden, then why not trade off Paul George, who I assume has more value than Kawhi just because he plays more? Like if
what
like
why?
What's up?
What do you mean why?
Why not trade one? Like I just
don't keep the three really good players together.
I mean, if they're not going to play a lot of games together, does it matter? And like, if I don't think I have a chance of contending, does it matter? Like, look, man, I've watched James Harden year after year after year find a way to fucking trip over his dick in the playoffs. I've watched year after year after year after year of watching Paul George and Kawhi Leonard not be healthy. I mean, Kawhi, the last time the guy finished a fucking playoff series on the floor healthy was the bubble, you know? And like the last time Paul George finished a playoff series healthy was the year after that when they played the Suns. Since then, it's been 2 years. They didn't make the fucking playoffs.
I get that, but if you can't get much for them right now, then what is the downside of just like giving it a year?
Well, okay, so in a year, let's say this. Let's say I'm Kawhi and I'm Paul George, and you have James Harden now, okay, who's a free agent at the end of this year. Let's not forget that. Let's say Paul George and Kawhi Leonard opt out of their player options. They opt out. And all three of those guys are free agents, and all of them are like, give us the max or we're not coming back.
So what you lose out on is...
But you're not opening the stadium until next year. So they can hold that against you as leverage. Like, hey.
Oh, it's not this upcoming season?
No, it's the season. It's next season. That's why I don't understand.
Wait, so it's the next NBA season or the next?
It's 2024-25.
I see. This whole time I thought it was next year.
Yeah. People even listen to this podcast like Prez is an idiot. And then
I told you this is off-season Prez. The draft is done. I'm not tapped in like that. All right.
This is clueless share Prez.
This is summertime Prez. I'm out here in my home, comfy, not paying attention.
No, I don't know. I don't really understand it.
No, that jokes aside, like that's
crazy.
That's 1,000% like legit.
If I'm them, I'd be like, the first thing, if they got Harden, the first thing I'm doing if I'm Paul George and Kawhi, I'm going to end them up and be like, listen, we're all opting out together. And then we're going to make this motherfucker pay us because he's got no options.
And he's got $1 bazillion fucking dollars.
Yeah, he literally has, because if the point is we need these guys, we want to have the star power when we open the stadium, guess what?
Yeah, then they have you by the nuts.
they have you by the nuts. Like I think it's bananas, and like that's why I thought when the Paul George rumors were kind of floating around, what I'm guessing happened is they quietly explored the market for Paul George. The offers were not great, and then they were like, okay, well then how can we try and make this happen with this team? This Harden situation, I don't know how exactly it came about. Maybe he caught wind of what was happening with them and whatever. And it's like, okay, well, if we can get Harden, then fuck it, let's just run it and see what happens. And it's like, to me, this does not feel like, this feels like an owner thing. This feels very much like Bomber being like, I need stars. I need to make sure that we have enough guys when we open the stadium. And my thing with this is like, if you traded Paul George, are less people going to come to your games? Honestly, like, is Paul George this mega fucking draw at the gate that I'm not aware of? Have you ever heard somebody in your life be like, "Yo, I gotta go see Paul George live"? Who says that? Who has ever said
just
that?
Prez, but that's it.
But even you're only saying that because you're like, well, I gotta go see Paul George live because I can catch it for like $20 in the whatever the fuck the Wiz Arena's fucking.
Paul George is one of the OG Prez baits.
Yeah, but you wouldn't go see it if he was at the Garden. You had to pay $250 for a decent seat.
Listen, I'm not fucking seeing Jalen Brunson at the Garden for $200 fucking
right.
dollars.
That's my point. Like he's not a draw like that. Like I can actually see the Harden. I could see the Harden argument. Like I could see that being like Harden's a draw, bigger name, flashier game, whatever. Like I could see it. I can get that, and I can get the Kawhi thing because Kawhi has the pedigree, right? You know, the claw, fucking. You know, I'm a fun guy, ha ha ha, the crazy laugh. He's obviously won championships.
Kawhi might be the lowest ratio in terms of like production to box office draw in like the NBA. And you got you feel me? Like what other stars are really like nope, when they're healthy, they're fucking phenomenal, but like nobody cares.
Yeah, nobody cares. And like I love Kawhi, but I very rarely, except for like until the playoffs, am I like, man, just gotta tune in for Kawhi right now because I'm just like I know exactly what Kawhi's gonna do. He's
Kawhi,
gonna,
right?
He's gonna do the robot like between the legs dribble 15 times, bop 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 bop, raise up for a 15-footer, and then it's just like then he'll run back or jog back like nothing ever happened. But yeah, like I don't know, man. The Clippers thing to me is fucking crazy. And I just think all these teams, like, I understand the returns right now that you're probably staring at for some of these dudes is not what you want. And you know what? It's not what you could have gotten last summer. I get that. And look, this is why I thought last summer was a crazy time to start trading for guys. Because I was like, this market makes no sense. You can go back and listen to pods we did last summer. That's what I said the entire time.
Starting with the DeJounte Murray, everybody was. Yeah.
I was
there
like,
some things people said, man. Yeah. We tried to tell y'all.
Yeah, I was saying the entire time, I was like, these prices are crazy. You got to wait for them to come down. I don't care how long it takes. But like,
and it didn't take long.
No, and they were always going to come down because it's not sustainable. You can't. I mean, look at how many teams
we saw it the last time there was a frenzy in the what was it 2016 cap spike.
Yeah, whatever. But I mean, that's cap space. It's a little bit different. But like, you can't. The price for every good player can't be 2 unprotected picks. Like that's not sustainable in terms of there are just not enough teams that are going to be able for that to work itself out. Like you're trying to tell me every single time I trade for like DeJounte Murray is a good player. I like making fun of him. I like going over the top and shitting on him. He's a good player. You're trying to tell me like every good player that made an all-star game as a fucking injury reserve or whatever you want to call it, as an alternate, basically, that they're worth 2 unprotected picks, a third protected pick, and an unprotected pick swap. That's fucking crazy to me. That's insane. And then if by the same token we suggest that for Randall this year, then people are like, no, you can't do that. It's Julius Randle. I'm like, what has DeJounte Murray done in his career? Has he made an All-NBA team ever? No. Has he sniffed one ever? No. He made an All-Star team once by accident, basically, because somebody broke their fucking toenail. Okay, cool. Randall's on that twice, and I don't see anybody talking about him like that. So to me, this entire market never made sense. It's a kind of a house of cards that came down. I think this new CBA really forced teams to get real. And because of that, like you have, like, I'm sure the Clippers were like, all right, you know what probably happened? They're probably like, you know what, this is a great time to get out of the Paul George business. Let's get the fuck out of this. You know what, we're out 2 first-round picks still. We're out of pick swap in 2025. Let's just fucking, let's trade Paul George. Let's kind of recoup some draft. Let's get back to neutral at least with our draft capital, and we're okay. We can move forward after this year. Most of our expiring contracts come off the books. It'll be fine. And they probably went out there looking for those offers, and the best offer they probably got was like the Knicks being like, "We'll give you R.J. Barrett, Evan Fournier, and a protected first." And that was like the offers. That was probably the best offer they got. And like they don't want to do that now, but because they're hoping and they're praying and they're almost like willing it to happen. Oh no, the market will come back. The market is gone, baby. It is gone. Like this new CBA has,
and even if it did magically return, like you said, 2 of your 3 players are looking at a new contract. So like at worst, you're looking at signing trades or trading them mid-season as expiring, which it doesn't matter. Even if you're really fucking good, like unless you're like an MVP candidate, you're probably not going to get much for an expiring star or a signing trade at the end. It's just how it works. So like, yeah, I think you're right. I don't think the wait for the market thing is really realistic.